Good afternoon. I'm Raghav Vijulwan from BA Honors English 6th semester. So today I'm going to talk about the two books and the interesting aspects and the things that appealed me the most. First is the novel Things Fall Apart by Chinua Achebe, and the other is a novella The Chronicle of a Death Foretold by Gabriel Garcia Marquez. The first and the most important thing that interested me or fascinated me is the post-colonial discourse. In both the books, we find that both the books have a post-colonial aspect and discourse in it. First is the Things Fall Apart, where we see that how the culture is destroyed because of the because of the colonial discourse, because of the colonization and the colonial expansion. On the other hand, in Things Fall Apart, we see that how the culture is described on the which is compared, which can be seen, which is not there in Joseph Conrad's Heart of Darkness. The description of culture is so much rich that we come to know that what Joseph Conrad didn't say is it can be seen and read here as well. One of the most important thing in the culture that we find is that the whole culture is rich, diverse in itself. There's a belief in oracles. There's a belief in supernatural elements, superstition, and the supernatural element is something that is to be noted down again. They believed in oracles, and they had rituals, they had festivals, and that is which can be linked, and it is similar to that of the festivals and the people living here in India. The post-colonial aspect here in Things Fall Apart is, it can be said that Africa was regarded as a dark and mysterious places in before the post-colonial discourse began. After the post-colonial discourse began, we see a different notion, we see a different picture, we see a different perception towards all these things. We find that it is the Africa, not just it was not dark, but it was rich, and this is what forms the basis of Things Fall Apart. The description of culture, the description of the traditions, the rituals is what makes or forms the basis of Things Fall Apart. And even when things are falling apart, we see a whole shadow of culture, a whole shadow of tradition, a whole shadow of rituals behind, and that is what is and it leaves an impression of the rich culture and heritage and the impression of the rituals on the minds of the readers, and that is what we all need. Talking about the superstition is what it can be seen anywhere around, whether it be India, whether it be there in Africa. Superstition is different. Superstition, for example, there was superstition that if you call ghost, if you call for ghost at night, ghost you invite ghost. In the same manner, if you call up for snake, if you say snake, it might, if you hiss, you are calling snake to your house. These are superstitions that were prevailing in Africa during those times. Through this, just a small picture of a village of Humofia, or a town of Humofia, or village of Humofia, we come to know about the whole society that was existing in Africa during those times. Africa was rich. That is what we come to know after reading the text, and whether it be in culture, tradition, etc. Now, moving ahead, the thing that interests me the most is that even there democracy was existed, and the say of the elderly people, the say of every single people matter the most, but most importantly, the say of the elderly people was important. Democracy, there was a democratic type of system that was, there was justice, there was poetic justice, that we call it poetic justice. There was law and order prevailing, and we see a different type of sense of, a different type of social society existing, where there is completely, there's social order, there's cultural order, and there is the society which is completely in humanity and completely in unity. It is the culture that forms the basis of one's society and one's unity. If the culture is stronger, the society is bound to be stronger, and if the culture is not stronger, the society isn't strong. Talking now, moving ahead to the how diverse the culture was, how diverse the people were. So we see, we come to know how people were during those times and in Africa, and how they had to bear even after the missionaries came down there. Now, they were just there to destroy the culture, destroy the heritage of or the rich traditions, and attracting them and converting them towards their own religion. Now, moving on to the another most famous novella by Gabriel Garcia Marquez, Chronicle of a Death Foretold, we see that the magical realism playing an important role there. Magical realism in the sense that the mixing up of surrealism and realism, mixing up of imagine of dreams of fantasy with magical elements with the realistic elements. The setting is real with magical elements in it. We find while readers read the story, while readers analyze the story, we find that while we read it, we expect that everything is happening and maybe Santiago Nasser would be saved, and this Santiago Nasser would be saved. But what happens at the end disturbs us. The description of the killing of Santiago Nasser is brutal, and that shakes us from within. On the other hand, if we talk about Gabriel Garcia Marquez, the magical realism is what makes him what makes the book famous as well. On the other hand, we expect that he would be saved and there would be other people who would be saving him from killing or from murder or from being murdered, but at the end what happens is sad that he is murdered. That is what magical realism is all about. Now, moving ahead, if we talk about how readers find it, we find it that how readers find it differently from the other narratives, or how, because it is magical realism that forms the basis of it. Now, themes are also one of the most important aspect in it, whether it be insensitivity of the people of the town, or whether it be ignorance of the people of the town. Just because a bishop was passing down, or a bishop was just waving off his hand and blessing the people out there, everyone was preoccupied and welcoming as if they were completely going crazy about a bishop for the bishop's arrival. Their own person, their own community man was going to get murdered by the own by the other person, and but still, no one even cared for it. Even if they cared, they shifted the responsibility on the other person, that the other person might have told him or Santiago Nasser. We don't come to know about how Santiago Nasser was, or how about his own story, about his. We only come to know about one side of a story, not the other side of the story, and that is what is the incomplete discourse that makes me interesting. That makes the book interesting, because if had Santiago Nasser came to know about how things were, how people react, or people saved him, there are many things that still lie unquestioned. The silence, that a lot said is a lot unsaid as well. So this is one thing that needs to be taken in. On the other hand, we see that the theme of feminism, that how Angela Vicario, how a character is said, and even not just Angela Vicario, we see that how people were just concerned about it, but how things changed, how things ended up is sad. Now, also talks about the failure of law and order that is still relevant. On one hand, we see that the failure of the mayor and even the priest knew about it. The priest knew about it and on a larger scale, and also, but he never told anyone to stop him. On the other hand, if we talk about how the mayor of the town knew about it, he also knew about it. Even in the court, the Vicario brothers were talking loudly. They were talking loudly that who is going to come, or they're going to kill Santiago Nasser. But I don't feel so that the mayor stopped him or the priest stopped him. That is one of the failure of the law and order that we see here. Now, talking about Things Fall Apart and Chronicle of a Death Foretold, we see that both the texts are rich in the post-colonial discourses, but they are different. While one side they show about how the rich culture of the African tribe, on the other hand, we see how how the influence of the post-colonial discourse, how the colonial expansion had a gruesome effect other people and had made them so much casual that a person was going to get murdered, uh, they could not save him from murder, even when everyone, the whole society knew about it. So this is what we see about Things Fall Apart and a chronicle of a death foretold. Thank you.